course, I saw you play at Baby's All Right. I had such a great time at your set, and I wanted to hear kind of like what it went from your perspective.
It was a great show. That was the first time I've gotten to play Baby's All Right. It was kind of a legendary venue in my mind. It's been sort of a, just a great spot for indie music and stuff for years. So I was happy to play there. But yeah, I love coming up to play in New York. Going to be down at the Knockdown Center in August for Electronica 3, the third Vaporwave festival that my label has put together.
I feel like I'm aware of what Vaporwave is, and 100% Electronica bills itself as like a Vaporwave label, more or less. Will you tell me, like in your own words and opinion, like what Vaporwave means to you?
It's just sort of like a recontextualization, reimagining, just like media, just sort of like a general media and art and music of like generally mostly the 90s, but there's some 80s and plenty of like Y2K. But my favorite parts of it are like looking into weird little corners that aren't supposed to be things that are considered art at all, taking video game soundtracks seriously, MIDI files that are on your computer, on your Windows 95 computer, things like that. I think when the Vaporwave thing was first getting started and it was really just all samples, I think there was a lot of kind of irony involved, but the irony I think is completely gone for me at this point. It's
interesting.
It's like enthusiasm for these things.
That's interesting that you say that in terms of irony, because like if you think about maybe music from like the 90s or like the late 80s, early 90s, like I feel like a lot of it was created, at least I think what maybe I interpreted you channeling is like, I don't want to say easy listening, because I feel like that's like a misnomer, but like music that's supposed to be really pleasant to listen to, and then went into like irony, and now I feel like it's, especially like the world really sucks, and now I'm like, I feel like just nice, like pleasant, beautiful music has a place in the world again.
That's a really interesting point. I see these arguments sometimes from people that, art has to be aggressive and it's supposed to be shocking. And well, I don't know. But of course, it's entirely subjective. Everybody's entitled to see art any way they want to. Escapism is nice. I like to sit around and watch Star Trek, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. It's just like instant anti-anxiety medication for me,
Totally. I saw you were wearing a Star Trek shirt at the show.
Yeah, the Deep
That's
Space
really good. Will you tell me a little bit more about the upcoming album?
The last album I did, it was kind of more of a darker tone. So this one is going a little bit back to my album Lightwear. There's this little subgenre of Vaporwave called Utopian Virtual.
Okay.
Which is really a lot of that kind of bright, Windows 95 desktop-y kind of things. Artists like Eyeliner and James Ferraro have really kind of fleshed that out. And that's one of my favorite little corners to touch on. So I'm kind of going back in that direction. I've also been thinking about this term midiwave, which is sort of my term for the originally composed quadrant of Vaporwave.
Okay.
People have in the past, this is synthwave, or isn't FM Skyline more? And it's really not synthwave, because synthwave is really that like Drive, Stranger Things sound.
Yes, yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I do and my friends do is more of like a syncopated, more R&B kind of inspired type of rhythmic idea. Yeah. There's so much that's different from synthwave, and obviously because I'm not sampling, and my colleagues that do the same thing aren't sampling, I feel like it needs a little bit more delineation. So I think I'm trying to address that right now.
I support it. I mean, I'm sure it's frustrating too, just to be like, have someone point at something and be like, this is this. And it's like, no, it's not. And I don't know how to like, person tell you. Can I ask you about what kind of gear you compose on?
The only real piece of gear I have is this keyboard. It's right here. It's the one that I use live. I wrote almost every sound that's on my last album, Illuminations, is off this keyboard.
Okay, cool.
So I like bringing it out live to have those sounds happen for people live, the same sounds. Other than that, I keep it pretty minimal. I have I run pirated copy of my recording software, and I have a bunch of pirated VSTs that have vintage sounds. I'm not a big gearhead. I still kind of like the a little bit more kind of punk rock attitude of like not investing $50,000 in all this crazy gear. I kind of like that. I have nothing against people that do that. I have best friends that do that. You know, it's just, I just like the kind of the little bit more punk rock thing about spending as little money as possible on production stuff as you can and making as much of it as you possibly can.
Yeah.
That's part of the midiwave ethos in my mind. It's also part of kind of the vaporwave ethos where people were doing everything in like audacity, you know, at the beginning.
Oh yeah. Cool. I didn't know that. I'm like, I've used Audacity for some things. Okay, sick. You can like travel light too. Like everything is like in the case, I assume.
That's right. Yeah, I can ship the keyboard under a plane, and then I've got everything else just kind of, you know, I've got one other case. I like to keep it light. I like that lightness thing.
How does it feel to like bring what you've been working on like by yourself like out into public? Like have there been any like surprising audience responses? Is it like different every time?
My live shows, everything is a lot heavier live than I think they expect it to, because I don't push my records super hard to be very, 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 very loud when I master my records. And I think especially for this album was the most that I was really thinking about how it was going to go live. So it's really, I mean, I really, really love performing this album live, because it's very rewarding to like have the big system behind it and be sort of imagining all these moments. So I think for people that hadn't seen me yet, I get a very cathartic performance from it. It's a really fun experience for me to share with people, especially if they're coming to hear these songs that they know already.